so we can start, and maybe some people will join after. So thanks to everybody, to the project partners, and especially also to the external advisory board members who are gladly answer to be here today. So this is actually the final workshop, final meeting for the external advisory board. Sorry, I will admit also the new person. And yeah, so actually, as most of you know, the BUS-GoCircular project actually came to its end by the end of February. So last month. Now we are in the final run to finalize the technical report, the financial report. And we found it was important for you as external advisory board member to have a quick overview on the main results that has been produced within the project, also to support the dissemination work. And we will be really glad also to hear from your feedback about how we can, and also how you can support us in doing the best of using those training materials that has been developed for like different targets, and how we can actually continue the journey of BUS-GoCircular. So this is like just the few words of introduction that I wanted to make. I am actually, sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I am Leslie Petitjean from ICLE European Secretariat. So ICLE is actually a network of cities, but we were, and we are still, a project partner within BUS-GoCircular. And this project was actually coordinating by ISO. So Jan and Daniela are present here, and Jan will present the first part actually of the meeting today. So the overview of the outcomes and the qualification framework that has been developed. And there are also most of the partners which are also here today that I thank again. So also don't be shy. It's like the goal of this meeting is to have like open discussion, so, and to share ideas. So yeah, you can just raise your hand, you can unmute yourself as well. Yeah, but feel free to do so as if you are like a EAB member or a project partner. Yeah, Elena, you can open the floor.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for this meeting. I would like to ask, are you going to provide us this information, this presentation, to have also the updated results?
You mean this one is, or there is also like a leaflet that has been produced that sum up the main training materials that has been developed. So I can provide you with these slides if you want, but if you have like to have really an overview on all the training materials that has been developed, I think I can maybe share the link, or someone can share the link. Maybe Daniela, if you have access to the link to the leaflet that you have developed, maybe you can post this in the chat. And so I think this will be the best overview that you can get from the project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will send it in the chat.
Great, thanks. So the agenda for today, actually, so we will spend most of the time of presenting the main outcomes of the project. So as I said, Jan will start to present the overview of the outcomes and the qualification framework. Pavla will present the trainer session, and I will present the tools that has been developed for the public procurers. And the second part of the workshop will be, and there will be some discussion after each round of presentation. And there will be a session on different opportunities that we have identified in horizon calls, but also live calls on circular construction. And we wanted to talk about this with you, also to consider whether or not you would be interested to join a future consortium. Yeah, so I think I will let the floor to Jan for the overview of the outcomes. And Jan, you can ask Elena for the next slide. She's a control on it. Thanks. You're muted, Jan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And I will not share the slides myself. I will just say whenever it's needed to move. A short introduction. I'm Jan Kromwijk, an educational technologist. And I think 4 years ago, or maybe even longer, we drafted a proposal for BUS-GoCircular, and now we are finalizing really the reporting work on BUS-GoCircular, and especially with the aim to get things in use. And why do we need to simulate circular skills? We need to have more circular buildings and to achieve the energy transition in the construction sector. Because when we are doing the transition without circular skills, we are creating a lot of waste instead of a lot of value. And therefore, we need more people with the relevant skills to build and to maintain and also to deconstruct circular buildings. There is a skills gap in Europe, and estimates show that more than 3/4 of the companies report having difficulties finding workers with necessary skills. And that's not only on circularity, it's broader. It's also on energy efficiency. And by stimulating demand for skills, public procurers can contribute to sustainable growth. And that is a bit a cultural aspect of the construction sector. Study after study is confirming that the construction sector is delivering what the customer asks. And if the customer is not asking for quality, they are not delivering what you need, in fact. And therefore, it's good to have a skills framework that also helps the procurement and the tender procedures to do a good job and to ask for the right qualities and the right value they want. Next slide. I will first start with the storyline of BUS-GoCircular. For several of you, it's the second or the third time you see it, but it's very good to repeat the story. Why is BUS-GoCircular needed and why it is needed to become more circular in the construction value chain? And therefore, we visualized a wave, the transition wave, where the energy transition is already empowering the wave of transition and also the wave of renovation already quite a lot of long time. And what we've seen that due to material scarcity, there is also material transition going on. We need to be aware that more than 80% of all the stuff we need in the future is already standing in the built environment at this moment, today. And third, we see a lot of impact with regards to climate mitigation, climate adaptation, etc. And therefore also different forms of the built environment are needed, such as a greener built environment. Next one. And the last enabling driver of the renovation wave and the transition waves is the digital transition. If you want to use, for example, existing materials, you need to know where they are, what quality they are, how you can retrieve them, when you can expect to use them, etc. And to do so, you need far more better digital documentation of the built environment, such as, for example, is provided by Madaster. We have combined them together within BUS-GoCircular under the motto circular transition. And within the circular transition, we need people. You can go to the next. We need people that are willing and able to serve the wave of change and to be driven by the power of the wave to deliver successes and values in upgrading and sustaining the built environment. Next one. And to do so, we have listened a bit to several stories of frontrunners. And what we found that every server that is now surfing the waves is inspired in the past to start surfing. And when you are inspired and you have the desire to do something new, to do something different, you start from scratch. And then you need to learn quite a lot. the past slide, please. Now the one back. You need to train, and it's very uncomfortable often because there are quite heavy waves, there is sand, there are shells, etc. And it's not easy to learn surfing. You have to have courage. Although what we see is if you do it together, you get inspiration, you get training, you also get emotional and social support to do the new things, and that's really needed to become a well-skilled professional, so to say, in serving the renovation way. And in order to do so, we have developed several things within BUS-GoCircular. Next slide. Because when we are looking to the built environment, we see a much greener built environment in the future. We see more energy, sustainable energy in the future. We see other forms of mobility and other forms of roof use. And therefore we decided, when you look to circularity, what is the most nasty issue or area where everything comes together? And that have we taken as our starting point. How to become circular in construction when you are sustaining buildings with special attention for green roofs, facades and interior elements, because there are lots of technologies are coming together and many different kind of crafts people are coming together. Next one. And then a short overview of the results, and you can find them all in the link that is provided by Daniela in the chat. We have created a qualification framework, and in the rest of the presentation, I will highlight a bit more from that qualification framework, where we started with a framework for circular interventions. We applied that framework to the topic of the project, sustaining buildings with multi-functional green roofs, facades, and interior elements. We have done a skill need analysis. If you have the full value chain with all the actors involved, who needs to be able to do what and with what quality in order to deliver a good job? And that resulted into a fully elaborated circular construction skills qualification framework. Based on that framework, we created a lot of training resources to get the capacity building quick started or kick started. A train the trainer program guide, a mentoring program guide. We created training materials for the to be trained trainers. We created some national training packs in order to inspire SME and company owners. And we have developed several gamified ways of learning, for example, the circularity games by Circle Economy and e-learning in Ozone in the Builder Skills Advisor app. And last but not least, we created several resources for the public sector, an action plan, how to do better green public procurement with circular skills in mind, and some further guidance documents. Maybe this is a good point to give you the room if there are any questions at this moment before I start the second chapter on the qualification framework. No questions at the moment. Then we will just continue with introducing the qualification framework and its elements. In order to do upskilling, you need good learning goals and you need practical learning goals. Therefore, we developed a circular construction skills qualification framework, and you can see it as a kind of a toolbox where we are addressing all skills needed in the full value chain by the different actors involved. Next one. And in order to do so, we applied several principles to become more circular. because in order to become more circular, you need to be dismountable and modular. You have to recognize things and to measure things. You have to have a better value chain collaboration. You have to rethink the business models. You have to digitize. You have to stretch the lifetime. You have to make sure that things are reused instead of wasted. And you have to elaborate knowledge and strengthen knowledge. You have to exchange and build upon each other's qualities. Next one. With those principles in mind, and those principles are derived from the circular economy frame, circle economy key elements model, we have developed task-based qualifications. And what are task-based qualifications and why do we need them? We need them because they give a practical perspective on the required skills for circular construction. If you have documented your qualification properly, it's far more easy to recognize learned skills. And it's very interesting to see that we are in the project with multiple European countries. There are not big differences in circular skills between countries in construction sector. So you can use the same training materials that are developed in the Netherlands to train people in Bulgaria or in Hungary or in Spain. Although it's always good to adapt a bit with national examples or regional examples. But with regards to the principles, circularity is not so different in Spain than it is in the Netherlands. What we also see as a why of the task-based qualification, you need learning outcomes in order to properly steer the development of training materials. And that has to do a bit with educational technology, because if you ask an expert an open question, you will get a big book instead of a small training where you learn how to do it in practice. And to steer the training development and to have it as pragmatic and practical as possible, we define the learning goals so that the expert exactly knows what to train on. And what's interesting is that circularity can be applied in different fields in construction, and that's also tested within the project. For example, we have done the elaboration of the framework for multifunctional green roofs, etc. But we have also applied it in a test case with the ventilation industry to find out what does the framework mean if you are a ventilation installer. Next slide. What is then the scope of the work we have done? What we have included are the integrating circular principles. So it is a so-called principle-based set of learning goals. We have focused on working as a member of the construction value chain, not doing it alone, but to create value together and to take responsibility together. And therefore also a focus on interdisciplinary skills like collaboration, research and evaluation, and also education and knowledge transfer. What we did not include are detailed skills and knowledge, for example, on technology specific stuff, for details of installing heat pumps or using specific bio-based materials in a circular roof construction. Those technical details are not within the scope of the framework. Next one. How do they work? What we did is that for each principle, we designed a main task. For example, the task is to design for the future. In order to deliver the task, there are several subtasks, and you can see them directly below the task. And what you can see here are numbers, and those numbers are referring to the unit of learning outcomes where we describe the learning goals. And here you see acronyms, and in the skills mapping you can find a full agenda and in the qualification framework on what those acronyms mean. And that is in fact a simplification, which are the professions involved, for example, the architect, the electrical engineer, etc. You can continue. And here you can see what I explained in the past slide, the unit of learning outcomes and the profession acronyms. What are unit of learning outcomes? That are statements regarding to what a learner knows, understands, is able to do, including a responsibility on completion of a learning process which are defined. So the unit of learning outcome is defined in terms of knowledge. Knowledge you need to be able to use by applying the knowledge within a skill so that you can take a responsibility for a certain result with a certain attitude. So you take the responsibility to design to reduce waste during production and use, what skills are needed and what knowledge is needed. Next slide. And that looks as an example of the qualification framework as follows. And you can go one or two more because then we have the screen complete. Yeah. Here you see the competence of a unit of learning outcome. The competence is you can take the responsibility to design with bio-based materials as an alternative for conventional construction materials. Then we have defined several skills that are needed to be able to deliver the result and a set of knowledge that is needed as background knowledge to apply the skills. So the competence, what should you be able to do in order to be competent, and what is the knowledge that is required. Next one. And that is done for 9 main tasks. In the original model, we have 8, although we have extended the model a bit, especially because in the original model, there was no assemble and construct for the future. So all the others were in the original model, although the realization on site was not yet in it. So we extended the model a slight bit. Next one. And this is how it looks in a bit more detail for the first task, prioritize regenerative and efficient use of resources. 8 subtasks with the related learning goals described as unit of learning outcomes. And later on this presentation, Pavla will explain a bit more in following the train the trainer, or Carol, I'm not sure who will do the presentation, how this is used as a kind of a repository to find out what are the skills needed in the training plan to train people on. Next one. It's good to reflect a little bit or to reflect back on the core elements, because all of the above stuff was based on the circular economy core elements model for circularity. And what you see here are 3 main elements. In order to become circular, you have to prioritize regenerative resources. You have to be able to stretch the lifetime, and you have to use waste as a resource. And around it are the enabling elements that enable organizations to deliver on the first 3 ones. And in that sense, it's a complementary framework that we have used as a foundation layer. Next slide. Based on that, no, maybe it's better to first give the room back to you to find out if there are any questions with regards to the qualification framework, because the next item is indeed the skills mapping. It's closely related, but if there are questions in between, I'm happy to answer them. I see.
Stefan, you have a question.
Yes, hello, and thank you very much for this presentation. Maybe just 2 brief questions. Have you also considered the question of certification bodies that would provide this recognition of the skills? Is this to be done, let's say, by particular chambers of industry within each country or region, or is there any other consideration you had in mind in terms of certification bodies? And the second question is, when you presented this model with these 3 points, this relates to the design phase of the building, or is it also more beyond? I'm just trying to connect it with the life cycle approach, because, for example, the last one, use waste as a resource, can be considered also to go beyond the design. The previous two, I guess, are more related to the design phase or even repair. I'm just trying to see how, in a way, this illustration or approach corresponds to the life cycle approach in this case of the buildings. Thank you.
I will start with the last question. What we did is we started with the principles of circular economy, because as it are principles, they are very powerful. And we translated and mapped those principles on the full value chain, but also all the phases in the life cycle of a building. So from the initial design towards retrofits and also demounting buildings and taking the materials in use on another site. So in fact, we are covering all phases in the building process. Then the second one, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, sorry, Jan, to interrupt, but just to say that Fernando has also kind of the same question. Have we get in contact with the governing bodies in the different countries participating in the project?
Yeah. And that's indeed the first question. And what we stated at the start of the project, we wanted to enable sectors to do capacity building, although we are not, as a project, writing the rules for sectors to implement the capacity building. Although within the project, we have worked with 7 national implementation plans. And as part of those national implementation plans, we have had several experiments or pilots or dialogues, depending on the country, to find out how these capacity building frameworks can be used in the country setting to create proper certifications, etc., and recognition of skills. And for example, for the Netherlands, we see that there is a huge interest, although the market, as seen from perspective of the branches, is too early in its development stage, that they are not yet willing to define skill recognitions in a more obligatory sense, because they state too less companies are capable already. So we do not want to make a barrier. And this differs hugely from country to country. For example, in Spain, in the Valencia region, they have successfully implemented a personal recognition based on the outcomes of the project. Yeah. Any other questions? And maybe
I think you can go ahead.
Maybe we can also share the link to deliverable 4.1, Daniela, because those dialogues have been described in far more detail. Yeah. Then the skills mapping. When you know what are the learning goals, it's also interesting to know who needs to make a big jump or a small jump with regards to his or her skills. And that's the goal of the skills mapping. What we did is that we used the ProfTrack methodology to do a skills mapping to find out there are 38 professions related to the topic. We have 58 skills distinguished based on the principles. Who needs to be able to do what within the construction value chain? On what kind of skill level someone has to be able to act? Do you need to know a bit about, or do you have to be an expert in, or do you have to be average skilled in a certain topic? Next slide. What we did as part of the skills mapping is to make it attractive. So we created visuals of the professions within their work context in order to give a clear picture. This is how it looks, for example, as a green facade maintainer or as a designer of more green construction, but also the harvester of the building elements, and to give it a face, not only numbers and databases, but also results that can be used directly by companies to implement. Next one. And here you can see several of the other illustrations that have been made. And in total, we have at least 15 specific for this project. But due to the fact that we are using these illustrations also in other projects, we have roughly 70 visuals representing professionals acting within their context. Next one. Then with regards to the skills, some of the skills, for example, solar power systems for electricity regeneration, design and build for reuse, how to use sustainable drainage systems, how to apply material passports. Those are specialisms within the work field of becoming more circular. Next one. And those are some examples. I give you now an impression of the full overview, and those can be found in the deliverable on the skills mapping, where we have a list of specialisms specific to the circular economy, thanks to the work of the University of the Shannon. And in Ireland, we have also non-specific skills. Those are more related to construction in general, but they are needed to become circular in the construction sector. And we have a set of specialisms that are especially related to the topic of the project, multifunctional green roof facades and interior elements. We have described them at a proper definition, and as a next step, we have defined the skill levels. And we are using 6 levels, not applicable. You do not need to know anything. Level 1, you have to know what it is and to be able to explain it a bit. On level 2, you have to really have the fundamental knowledge, you understand it, and you have some practical skills. You are able to solve easy problems by applying basic methodologies, materials, and information. On level 3, it's far more comprehensive, and you are capable of solving quite a lot of things within the work field. And on level 4, you have advanced knowledge involving a critical understanding. So you are already able to solve more complex problems. For example, as an architect, what does it mean for the construction elements to become more circular? What kind of complex issues do you have to solve with regards to mounting, safety, etc.? And then on level 5, the specialized knowledge and problem solving skills. And that is the highest level. Then you are also able to cover unexpected things. So things that have never been seen before, you have enough skills and competences to find out what is needed there. What we did is that we made an indication. One back, please. An indication of the current skill levels. So where is the current state of play? And we have done that separately in all countries involved in the project. We have integrated and compared those results into one overview. What is the perception of the current skill levels? And we have mapped the future skill levels by doing interviews with experts that have already the experience on level 3, 4, or 5. So they know what was the professional change they have made themselves in order to become, for example, a circular construction architect. Next one. And that's resulting in maps with, for example, the architect in the middle with all the specialisms around, and you see that an architect has to do quite a lot within becoming more circular in the construction value chain. And all those acronyms are referring to the specialisms. And when you have the skills mapping report, you can easily find what they all mean so that you can, for example, decide to create a curriculum for upskilling on PRR, PRR1 and PRR2, as they seems to be very important for the architect. Next one. We are always also trying, instead of showing diagrams, to help people on a personalized way, and therefore we are using the data of the skills mapping in the Build Up Skills Advisor app. Next one, or next to one, where you can then do a self-assessment. For example, if you are an asset manager, how do you rate your own knowledge and skills with regards to incorporation of digital technology? And then you give your own estimation, and based on that, you get a comparison between the skills mapping and your own skills profile. And the app gives you upskilling advice where you can find resources to further upskill yourself. I think this was it for the skills mapping and how we applied the skills mapping. And that means that it is now time again for a round of questions.
And we already have one. Maybe Fernando wants to unmute himself and ask a question.
Yeah, architecture is a regulated profession in the European Union. That's true. And a university degree rather than a vocational qualification. Universities are usually autonomous to develop their own curricula. And that's also fully correct. And the nice thing is that all the outputs we have delivered can be taken in use by universities to make those changes to their curricula to also upskill architects directly or indirectly to become more circular. And a good example of that is from the Croatian implementation with the Zagreb University, where one of the professors in the university incorporated all the elements. And maybe Karel or Pavla, you can also indicate how you have done that at the university level in Czech Republic. So it's still a bit of noisy, Karel, so maybe Pavla is willing to explain it.
It's
Okay.
yes, please, Pavla.
My background noise is much better.
Yeah,
So can you hear me and see me?
we can hear you. Yeah,
we cannot see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
Now we can see you.
Okay, hello. Well, we have several plans at the Czech Technical University with the materials that were developed. So there is a plan of updating the curricula for architects, but also construction engineers in future. So in next 2 years, all the curricula will be changed and updated according to the actual trends, and we plan to use materials coming from BUS-GoCircular project, definitely.
Thank you. Thanks, Fernando, for the question. Any other questions? No, then we can go to the next slide, and I think also to the next speaker.
Well, it was, yeah, well, you had some questions. No, if we had time actually for the discussion with the EAB members, but actually we are a bit running out of time. So maybe better to have Pavla's presentation now on train the trainer session. And so I think there is discussion along the presentation, so it's fine. And there will be hopefully some time also at the end of the session. But please, Pavla and Helena, you can go to next slide. And Pavla, the floor is yours to present the train the trainer session. Just maybe a really brief introduction or like presentation. Actually, thanks a lot, Jan, by the way, for this really good presentation of BUS-GoCircular and also the qualification framework and the skills mapping. So it was kind of the first diagnostic, the first step to
and
do
this is
this.
really to get you acquainted with, because if you want to understand it fully, you really have to go to the results and get a deep dive, because you are now seeing the wave. You have not entered the wave yet. So
you're not surfing yet. Yeah, but so to actually, well, we need people on the ground to actually make the change happen. And so for this, we need to train people to be able to train themselves in the different countries. And that was the goal of the different train the trainers session that has been developed within the project. So Pavla, the floor is yours to present these sessions. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Pavla Gotakova. I am from Czech Technical University in Prague. And in the BUS-GoCircular project, we were responsible for running the Train the Trainers courses. So the main purpose of the TTT program was to create a group of trainers acting as front runners that finally were involved in the national and European level implementation of the project. Well, the course content and form was based on the qualification framework that has been already mentioned here, and the materials and methods that were developed during the project. Finally, we realized 3 Train the Trainers courses at European level. So they were in form of face-to-face training. It was the first one, and the other 2 were like online events. So next slide, please. So here is a short overview of the content of the course. So there were 2 parts, lectures and interactive sessions. So the lectures that were delivered are on the left listed. So it was a basic introduction to circular economy, skills mapping, unit of learning outcomes, introduction and description, introduction to training materials and useful tools, teaching methods, then a lecture on technologies for resilient, energy efficient and healthy buildings, introduction to mentoring program, and finally a lecture on multifunctional green roofs, facades and interior elements. If you see the column, it is divided. There are parts, some of the lectures are in bold, and these lectures were delivered like normal lectures also for the online form of the training, but the others were recorded for the online form. So the participants could have listened to them on the YouTube channel, and they are still there on the YouTube channel of the project. So the lectures were accompanied by the interactive sessions that were devoted to a group work. So the participants were divided into small groups for these sessions, and finally they worked together and presented their outcomes to the others. So the starting interactive sessions was about main opportunities and barriers to implement circularity. And the other 2 sessions were devoted more to the main task of the whole course, which was creating a training program. So in the second interactive session, the participants were working with the training materials, the units of learning outcomes, also with the skills mapping, just to find out what will be their final program about. And the last interactive sessions was devoted to the training program design itself. So for the participants, the main task was to design a training program. And this training program should be described by educational form, the level of the course, the number of proposed hours, target audience, and also modules that the course will likely to cover. Next. slide, please. So some information from the real courses. So there were 3 finally. The first one was face-to-face. It's 1 year ago. It was in January. It took place in Prague and it lasted for 2 days. Beside the lectures and the interactive sessions, there was the advantage that we were together. So there was also some social dinner and also excursion to National Technical Library. The other 2 events were online events. Well, in fact, each of them was for 3 days, but in fact, it worked like there were Tuesday afternoons, 3 Tuesday afternoons in June, and then 3 Tuesdays afternoons in November. Each session that afternoon was for 2.5 hours, and it combined the lectures and the interactive sessions. So you can see the pictures from these events, from the online form and also from the face-to-face form. How did we choose the participants? For the first trainers, we just asked the consortium partners to bring their people. So it was more based on a personal invitation. So finally, we have 15 participants from consortium countries. The online events were more open, so the registration was open for anybody, but we had a limited number of participants to be accepted. So for the second trainers, 17 participants completed successfully the course, and they were from consortium countries, but also from other countries from Europe. And the third trainers, well, we increased the number of participants well, because we had the capacity. So finally, 25 participants completed the course. These 25 participants were surprisingly from 16 countries, most of them from Europe, but there were also people from Africa and South America. As the working sessions were based on the collaboration, we asked during the registration the people for a short CV, so we know their profession, so we can divide them into several groups according to their professions. So we had architects, engineers, educators, project managers, and researchers, approximately like this. And this was a good idea because they were able to more collaborate on the common aim or target groups for their training. So I think they appreciate it a lot. Next slide, please. Well, this is the last slide. After each course, we did some evaluation survey. So we sent a questionnaire to ask many questions about the course. How did they like it? If they were happy, and I just picked several of them to present here. In fact, for all the participants, they stated that the course met their expectations, and they also stated that they plan to use the materials in their future training programs. And also, as the first trainers course was 1 year ago, we have the information that most of the people that participated in the first course have already used the materials in their own trainings. Well, there was also a question what they have appreciated the most during the courses, and mainly it was the collaboration, exchanging of the knowledge, the international participants, and sharing their experience. Well, it is obvious for the face-to-face training, but surprisingly, it was also the same for the online events. Maybe it's because we made small groups with 4 to 6 people, and they really were forced to collaborate and to produce something together. So they really enjoyed sharing their knowledge and working together. Yeah, and also, well, for the online sessions, it worked also with within the Microsoft Teams, and we had a shared space in Mural, so they can work on the same task at the same moment, all the people. So this was also well appreciated. Well, any questions to what I have presented here just now before this question that is on the screen? Well, okay. So this question: do you think that this kind of training would be useful in your country and for your company? So if you are thinking about the trainings that are delivered around you, the trainers that you know.
Or any reaction on, yeah, what was maybe I don't know, going more in depth in into the content of the training sessions, or no?
But maybe just a quick question is, I mean, I'm thinking how this kind of trainings could be systematically applied throughout the EU across member states in a regular, systematic fashion, and to what extent can EU instruments help with this? And I guess we have the skills agenda, we have a number of policies that could be linked to the social fund and maybe others now when we review the MFF. I just wonder, I guess it's also about enabling this kind of trainings to slowly learn these new skills and make beneficiaries aware of these possibilities. So maybe just an open, just a remark and then more like an open question that I would, because what you presented seems to be quite, that it was quite useful for the participants. It's all about keeping the continuity and scaling up this kind of possibilities.
Well, the fact is that this training is not aimed at normal people, but it's for the trainers. Yeah, so I don't know how it is placed in the framework, or well, yeah.
That's a good one, Pavla, because you have two ways to influence. You have the top-down methodology and you have the bottom-up methodology. And as we are a European project, we are not able to do policy making to decide for others. So we decided to focus on capacity building on the ground. So in fact, BUS-GoCircular underpins and enables trainers to adapt and to train themselves in adapting circularity within their curricula. And I think that is the big success of BUS-GoCircular, because we have had quite a lot of trainers, not only at the European level, but also the national trainer sessions were very well appreciated and made a big impact. On the other way, it is always good if there is top-down requirements. And I think that policymakers, instead of inviting the market to design their own frameworks, can refer to these kind of existing frameworks, like in BUS-GoCircular, to state this is a good baseline. Make sure you implement this within your own way forward, for example, in the transition pathways that have been foreseen in the high-level construction forum. Does this help? And are there any other questions?
Don't see other question. I just see that Pablo is leaving. I mean, he told me that he has to leave at 3. Thanks a lot, Pablo, to attend the meeting. I don't know, Stefan, if you have like a question or if it's a comment that you are typing now. I see you typing now.
Just a comment, I also have to leave, unfortunately, pressing matters I have to address. But thank you so much for the presentation, and I'm very much happy to keep in touch.
Thank you a lot. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
I think we can continue if there is no further question on the presentation of the main outcomes. So you can go directly to the next slide. Helena, thanks. So I will present the tools that has been developed for the public procurers. So as you know, if we want to stimulate the construction skills, we need also to create a market and a demand for this, and the demand usually pass by the public procurement. So we know that green public procurement is an important tool to stimulate the market. And what we have actually developed within the project is actually, you can go to the next slide actually, Helena, please. Yeah, thanks. There are actually two tools that has been developed within the project for the public authorities relying on their public procurement power. This is actually a training slide deck that every public authority could use to act and shape according to their needs, to train their own workforce, and to push actually this demand for circular construction skills within the tenders. And there is a guidance, so we can share the links of those two tools in the chat. And so these guidance actually go through different levers that could be used by public authorities. And I will go a bit more in depth in this. So thanks. There will be actually 6 levers that public procurers can use. And this is a brief overview of what you can find within the guidance. There are more examples within the guidance, but it's more like inspiring examples that we want to share here. So actually, as a master planner, you know that public authority, local authorities have or can develop some master plans such as circular economy action plan, and developing roadmaps to actually plan for some actions in the future to develop circular economy action. One of these actions could be, for instance, to develop or to introduce some course on circular economy and circular construction in higher education program, for instance. It could be one of those, but at least having a circular economy action plan is one of the first steps. It means that circular economy becomes a strategic component of the public policy, of the public local policy. So this is one of the general action that can be led. Second slide, please. Or second lever, next slide and second lever. So maybe this is the most important one. I can go in depth in this. So as you, yeah, thanks Daniela, you have posted the link to the relevant resources. So this one is really powerful because this is on public procurement. I would say this is more a direct impact on this. Because public authorities usually have their own assets, their own buildings that they own, and that they have to either build or renovate or demolish. And so for this, they have like a really good power that they can use in embedding some specific clauses within the tenders. So we thought that the most inspiring was actually, and the most powerful one, is actually one that has been developed in a project which is called BUS League, and this is about integrating some training clauses within the tenders, which means that the contractor that will win the tender has to commit to train their staff during the project in a specific set of skills. So it has been implemented in different countries, in Bulgaria, Ireland, France, and Spain. But there is also some other action that could be conducted as building owner and public procurer. So for instance, the first step is to first train your own workforce, because usually internally in like the building department of the local authority, the people responsible for writing the tenders are not always aware about the need and the urge to develop this type of skills. So the first step is actually to train your own workforce. Also to ask for some demolition audit when you will demolish a building. So there are a series of requests that could be made within the tenders. Really powerful one. And so on this one, the example also that we have put on the slide is the training material that has been developed. So this is the slide deck that we have developed within the BUS-GoCircular project. Next slide, please. So another powerful lever that could be used is the economic development jurisdiction that the local authorities have. Actually, they can develop a series of action to support organizations and companies who want to develop their activity around circular construction. So as an example, for instance, there is the municipality of Amsterdam, which wanted to develop like kind of a district within the city, which is called a digital hub. There was some land available, and those plots and land, they were renting to companies. But so the municipality established some criteria to select the companies that will establish their activity on this location, and they had to develop sustainable activities, including circular economy or circular construction for some of them. So it just showcases how a municipality can activate this economic development competency to develop circular construction skills. Next slide, please. Thanks. So also, we all know that the financial role and the regulator role could be like also an important lever to mobilize. So we all know that the tax incentives, for instance, for the renovation waves, they have been also, or they are still actually super powerful, because like giving tax incentive in the renovation works cost, for instance, can really increase the demand for this type of construction works. Also providing some partial funding. It's for instance what has been made in the program SkillNet in Ireland. They have provided partial funding for construction companies, which has decided to train and skill the workers in this topic of circular construction. So by giving direct funding to companies who are able or who are willing to train in this really innovative topic, could be one incentive that could push actually this demand. Next slide, please. Yeah, so local authorities are also really in contact with a lot of stakeholders in the different steps of the value chain, and they can act actually as a network facilitator. So on this level, there are a lot of actions also that can be conducted. So it can be, for instance, developing some digital platforms to connect the offer and demand on reuse material, developing some training sessions to actually upskill the workforce. This is actually what has been done in Brussels. So the city of Brussels has launched, 4 years ago, the initiative which is called BUS-GoCircular. And this platform provides a lot of services to SMEs and very small enterprise as well, who wants to develop a sustainable construction program. And this platform actually offers some free training to these companies who wants to develop really circular construction skills. So this is one of the examples also of what can be made. And also a really important one is, this is, sorry, the last slide, sorry, Helena, I'm still, yeah, thanks, is developing the reuse centers as a network facilitator. Actually, we know that we need, if we want to upscale this circular construction scheme, we will need some centers or platforms or depot. There are many wording for this, but we will need this kind of infrastructure to store and to refurbish the materials, and also we will need the workforce also to do so. But if there is no special infrastructure to do so, well, we won't be able to upscale those practices. And for this, local authorities have a big role to play to develop this kind of reuse center. So next slide, please. Thanks. So as a urban planner, it may be more on the long term that it could enhance the reskilling and the upskilling of the workforce. But this is really also interesting lever There are two examples that are really good, actually. So if we want to embed urban planning regulation and circular criteria into those urban planning documents, it can be done at the district level. So this is basically what the city of Brno, sorry, I really don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry if I mispronounce it. So in Czech Republic, they are planning to develop this smart district. And for this, so they are acting on really different levels and different goals. But the main principle is to use the different R, like redesign, rebuild, reuse, resource, resilience, responsibility, and responsiveness. So they want to make this district more resource efficient, as resource efficient as possible. And this is what is interesting, is that they have defined this principle at the very early stage of the project. So we know that the earliest we integrate those principles in the definition of the project, the best it will be. So the tenders that will be published to actually develop this district will then integrate also those requests in having workforce skilled in this. There is also a good example that it has been made in Finland on the land allocation. So it's quite related to urban planning, actually, when Finnish local authorities sell the land that they have to private developers. What they have experimented is to put some circular criteria within the tender for selling the land. And so in this way, they push private developers to train their workforce and to upskill their workforce on those topics. And next slide, but I think the next slide is actually the two QR code to have access to those training materials and the guidance that has been developed within the project. And the next slide is some open question. I mean, if there is any question, we don't have to follow those two questions, but I will be also interesting to know more about your ideas and your knowledge about this. If you have like good ideas also to share, I would be happy to hear your thoughts. I don't see any reaction.
Is it a lot of information, or is it that it seems very good and you will take the time to read this later in more detail?
Let's hope for the second option.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. We are like just 15 minutes left for the meeting. And we wanted to take this opportunity also to discuss with you the upcoming calls on circular construction in general. So we are looking actually on two different programs, so Horizon Europe and also LIFE. Maybe Jana will give you also the floor after on LIFE. I think you put the LIFE opportunity. Okay, thanks Fernando for being with us. Thank you, bye-bye. Yeah, well, actually, there are actually 3 calls which seem really interesting, targeting the circular construction topic. So they think those the 3 ones, so design for adaptability, reuse, and deconstruction of buildings, aligned with the principle of circular economy. One more targeting the BIM topic, and the last one on industrialization of sustainable and circular deep renovation workflows, which is interesting because it connects at the same time. You also have to, I also have to, okay. I think there are really a few now. I think Steffi, you're the only one. Not sure. From the EAB members. No, Elena is still here, so still, woman power here. for the EAB members. Yeah, so there are those 3 really interesting calls on circular construction. So we wanted to ask you if your organization is maybe considering participating in one of those 3 or like 2 or 3 actually of those calls, knowing that it will be open in September and close in January. So this is still the early stage, but yeah, it's more like a open question. Yes, Selena.
Yes, we would actually be interested in participating. Maybe given some more detailed information, yes, we would.
Okay, all right. Would you be more interested in? There is one, like the second one on BIM is really specific on BIM. And those the 2 other ones are mostly on how to design, or like how to design and scale up the circular construction process. So usually when I ask companies if they are interested in, or in which calls they could be interested, they are mostly interested in the one or the third, in the first one or the third one, sometimes less on BIM because it's really specific, but I don't know from you.
For us also is the first one, but we have a team that we cooperate that is specialized in BIM. And maybe,
okay.
Yes, and maybe I could have a talk with them and see if they'd like to participate in this BIM proposal. Yes.
Okay. Interesting to know.
Yeah, so we could contact in the following days and
sure. Yeah. Yes. Steffi, I think you have a question.
Yes, I was wondering whether this calls, I mean, this is all looks like that it mainly deals with buildings. As I'm a landscape architect, I would be interested in knowing also if that also extends to open space.
Okay, honestly, I cannot answer to this one. Like the research we've made was mostly on buildings, to be honest. So not on green space or open spaces. There should be can have a look actually, but like the 3 that has been selected, like that we are presenting today, is mostly on buildings, as you say. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, but there should be other ones. I'm sure that there. Yeah. Elena, you still have your hand raised. I don't know if it's a new one.
Sorry, just left from.
Oh, okay, no worries. Fine, all fine.
So up to when we have to make the proposals for the tender?
Well, it's not open yet. So at this stage, so the opening date for the publication of the call will be open in September this year.
September, as you're right.
Yeah, and the deadline will be in January. So we still have time. And this is a single stage, but we still have time. So let us know when you have reached the partner who is working on BIM. Just let us know. You can send us an email.
Yes, of course.
In the coming weeks, will be fine. Helena with a hatch. No.
Yes, Helena. Just maybe a comment. Even though there's 9 months to go before submission, from our experience, and I think Jan could tell us more about that, forming a consortium and finding a coordinator and someone who will take the work of, because you can have like someone that manages the process of writing the proposal, and the organization that will manage the project if the call will be one. So this can take some time. So if you have any ideas for partners, and especially someone that could lead the project, it's quite important to decide this quite early before the opening of the call in September, because writing a horizon proposal does take time. It's a big upfront investment, but for very big results. I think Jan would have some ideas.
It does not only take quite a lot of time, it especially requires very high level competences and skills, because the competition in Horizon Europe is very heavy. So in fact, if you want to score a project, you have to be sure that your project will be rewarded with only 9s or 10s, because if you are scoring lower than a 9, you're definitely out. And we have experienced that in the past because we have a quite well drafted proposal on the first line for adaptable reuse deconstruction of buildings. And that proposal can definitely be upgraded by actors interested. Although, unfortunately, I am no longer working in the organization that was willing to take the coordinator role. So you have to look then for a coordinator. And otherwise, I advise you to link with already existing consortia that are working on these topics, because you really need to have a very well skilled and experienced coordinator to make sure this succeeds. On the other hand, and maybe that's a small bridge to the live call, in the live call there is also competition, and the competition is becoming more heavy, but due to the fact that you get 5% less subsidy than in the Horizon Europe call, many organizations that are competing in Horizon Europe are not competing in the LIFE program. Unfortunately, the amount of funding in the LIFE call is a bit smaller, although the work is far more practical. So many of the LIFE proposals are on coordination and support to make sure that things happen on the short term in the field instead of doing innovative research and things like that. And that call for proposals is expected to be published in April. And there is again a construction skills topics. So for example, I expect that bio-based materials and the application of bio-based materials in the construction value chain with regards to circularity is a very important aspect that is not well covered, because a lot of things are new in that field. And I see quite a lot of possibilities to do something there. And the other way, we are now talking with ECLE. There is a lot of incompetence at municipality level. So lots of municipalities needs to be upskilled with regards to these topics in order to be a properly functioning organization in the field, because municipalities can make a big difference, but they need to be skilled in order to do so. And that's quite a challenge. And I know that in the live call, there is also room to do that. And there we, together with Bulgaria, there is already a well elaborated draft where you have signed a letter of support for. Unfortunately, the competition was a bit too high, so we have to further improve it for the next round. But I'm definitely sure that Dragomir will do a resubmission. So that was quite a lot from my side. Now I will keep my mouth shut.
I just to add on when you were saying, Jan, Horizon is competitive and it might even get more because they're thinking about either putting Horizon program under the structural funds or cut the program after 2025. So this might be one of the last opportunities to apply for Horizon funding that would last 3-4 years before there's any significant change to that funding program. So this is actually quite a good opportunity to seize before these major changes.
It is a good opportunity, although within BUS-GoCircular we have created things that can be implemented today and tomorrow, while most of the Horizon projects are more innovative from character, and they are working on the longer term innovations. And what we found out, we made a bit more pragmatic proposal that is also delivering results within 2 years instead of 4 years. And that was not rewarded well because that's not in-depth, fundamental, innovative research. And I think especially when there are issues with regards to becoming more circular, where fundamental or applied fundamental research is needed, then Horizon is a very good accelerator. And then it's always very good to be there, for example, as ICLEI, to translate the lessons learned in future-looking perspectives, so to say.
Yeah, I agree. Depending on what are your goals and what you want to experiment or implement,
Yeah,
like the initiative should be regarding like
and
according to what you want to
I'm
achieve.
not sure that the public knows what the technical readiness levels are, but in fact, Horizon is focusing on technical readiness level from laboratory to piloting for the first time in the field. Well, LIFE is focusing on technical readiness level where there is proven that it is possible in the field, how to scale it to make sure that it is used by others. And that's the big difference.
Yeah, that's a good way of explaining the difference and the technical readiness level. Good. Is there any other comments, either on future calls or in general on the project on BUS-GoCircular? I think it's a no. There is no reaction. Okay, right. So we can wrap up, I think. I really wanted to thank you all because most of the partners also from the project attended the meeting today, and it was the last time maybe I think we have this meeting with everybody. And yeah, again, it's a good opportunity to just say a big thank to everybody, that it was a pleasure to work with you all. So yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks also to the EAB members who attended. And I hope we will see each other soon and collaborate in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks
also.
a lot.
Likewise, thanks a lot.
Thanks
a
a lot.
lot.
And have a good
Take
Eastern
care.
holiday.
You too, yeah. Good
Bye.
Eastern.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.